We often celebrate passion, talent, or intelligence as the ultimate drivers of success. But the truth is, none of these matter without the one habit that turns ideas into achievements: consistency. Passion fades, talent can go unused, and intelligence can remain untested. But consistency is the quiet force that transforms small actions into extraordinary results. Think of it this way: greatness is not built in a single day. It is built in the daily discipline of showing up, even when motivation runs out. We underestimate how powerful small, repeated actions are. Reading 10 pages a day doesn't seem like much until it becomes 300 pages in a month and entire libraries over a lifetime. Exercising for just 20 minutes may feel insignificant, but done daily, it reshapes not only the body, but the mind. The problem is not starting. Starting is easy. Anyone can start. The challenge is staying. Staying when it's boring, when it's difficult, when nobody is watching, and when it feels like nothing is happening. This is where consistency becomes the king of all habits. It doesn't demand perfection, only persistence. Consistency is not about intensity, it's about identity. It's about saying, this is who I am, and this is what I do. When you repeat an action over time, you don't just complete tasks, you build trust with yourself. You prove that you can rely on you. And once you learn to rely on yourself, the world begins to trust you too. And here's the beautiful paradox: consistency feels slow, almost invisible in the moment. But in hindsight, it is the fastest path to growth. The compound effect of steady effort is unstoppable. What looks ordinary in the day, today becomes extraordinary over time. So remember, success is not the outcome of grand gestures, but of small, repeated actions done consistently. Consistency doesn't just create habits, it creates character. And character is what shapes destiny. 5 keynotes of the speech: consistency transforms small daily actions into extraordinary results over time. Starting is easy, the real challenge is maintaining effort when motivation fades. Consistency is not about perfection, but about persistence and reliability. Repeated actions build identity and trust. First with ourselves, then with others. The compound effect of consistent effort turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. Consistency transforms small daily actions into extraordinary results over time, and this is one of the most powerful truths we often overlook in our pursuit of success. When we imagine transformation or achievement, our minds usually jump to moments of breakthrough: winning the award, getting the promotion, launching the business, or completing the marathon. We see the highlight reels of others and assume their success was born out of one grand effort or one decisive moment. But the reality is far less glamorous and far more profound. Extraordinary results are rarely the consequence of a single act. They are almost always the product of consistent, repeated actions carried out over time. Consider the story of water cutting through rock. At first glance, a drop of water seems insignificant. How can something so soft and fleeting make a mark on something so solid? Yet, over years, over decades, the persistence of dripping water carves deep grooves and shapes landscapes. The water does not conquer the rock with force, it conquers it with consistency. This is the same principle that governs human achievement. A person who dedicates themselves to small, deliberate actions each day eventually shapes their own destiny, carving away obstacles that once seemed immovable. The power of consistency lies in its compounding nature. Much like compound interest in finance, the benefits of consistent actions grow exponentially, not linearly. If you save a small amount every day, it doesn't seem like much at first, but over time, the accumulation builds wealth beyond what you might have imagined. The same applies to learning a skill, improving your health, or nurturing relationships. Reading for 15 minutes a day may not make you an expert in a week, but after a year, you've absorbed the knowledge of several books. After 5 years, you've expanded your worldview, improved your communication, and perhaps opened doors to opportunities you never thought possible, all because of those consistent 15 minutes. Consistency also creates momentum, and momentum is one of the most underrated forces in life. Think about pushing a heavy object. The first shove feels impossible, the second is still a struggle, but once it begins to roll, each push becomes easier, and soon the object is moving almost on its own. Daily actions work in the same way. At first, the effort feels heavy, the reward's invisible. But once momentum builds, consistency transforms struggle into flow, and flow into extraordinary achievement. The hardest part is often the beginning, but the magic is in the continuation. What makes consistency extraordinary is not just the results it produces, but also the resilience it builds in the process. When you commit to doing something every day, whether it's practicing gratitude, exercising, learning, or creating, you teach yourself discipline. Discipline becomes the bridge between your intentions and your actions. Over time, discipline evolves into identity. You no longer need to remind yourself to write because you have become a writer. You no longer need to push yourself to exercise because you have become someone who values health. The transformation is not just external in the results, but internal in who you are becoming. The world often rewards intensity because intensity is dramatic. We admire the person who runs 20 miles in one day more than the one who walks 1 mile every day for 20 days. Yet, if we look at the long-term effects, the latter often surpasses the former. Intensity might spark inspiration, but consistency guarantees transformation. Extraordinary results are not the result of doing things occasionally with great effort, but of doing small things consistently with steady effort. The person who writes 500 words every day will finish a novel. The one who waits for bursts of inspiration may never complete a chapter. It is also worth noting that consistency does not mean perfection. Missing a day, stumbling along the path, or experiencing setbacks does not erase the progress built by consistent effort. What matters is the return, the ability to continue the action the next day, the willingness to show up again, even when yesterday didn't go as planned. Extraordinary results are not born out of flawless execution, but out of relentless return. Think of the stories of great innovators, athletes, or leaders. Behind every visible success lies an invisible pattern of consistent practice. The world remembers the championship win, but not the countless hours of early morning training. We admire the best-selling book, but not the months of writing in solitude. We enjoy the groundbreaking invention, but not the years of failed prototypes. These extraordinary results are the children of consistency, nurtured daily in the quiet hours when no one is watching. When we embrace consistency in small daily actions, we tap into a force greater than talent or motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It rises and falls with mood and circumstance. Talent provides an advantage, but without consistency, it remains potential, not progress. Consistency is the equalizer. It allows the ordinary to achieve the extraordinary. It gives us the ability to outlast, outgrow, and outshine through sheer persistence. So, the small daily actions we often dismiss as unimportant, the morning routine, the journaling, the reading, the practice, the calls, the workouts are not small at all. They are seeds planted every day, quietly growing beneath the surface until one day they bloom into extraordinary results. And when they do, the world will call it success, but you will know it was never one moment of brilliance. It was the king of all habits, consistency, working silently, persistently, and powerfully over time. Starting is easy. The real challenge is maintaining effort when motivation fades. At the beginning of any journey, there is a spark of excitement that drives us forward. We feel the rush of new possibilities, the thrill of imagining who we might become or what we might achieve. That excitement fuels the first step, sometimes even the first few steps. But as time passes, that initial burst of energy weakens. The novelty wears off, and what once felt inspiring now feels routine. It is in these moments when motivation fades that the true test begins. The ones who continue to move forward despite the absence of excitement are the ones who eventually arrive at the extraordinary. Every new venture has its honeymoon phase. Think of the person who signs up for the gym at the start of the year. In the first week, they are enthusiastic, buying new workout clothes, posting updates on social media, and imagining a healthier version of themselves. But by the second or third week, when the soreness sets in and the results are not yet visible, the excitement begins to fade. Without consistency, the habit breaks and soon the resolution is forgotten. This pattern is not limited to fitness. It plays out in learning a new language, starting a business, or even committing to a relationship. The energy of the beginning is intoxicating, but it is fleeting. Sustaining effort when the energy runs low requires something deeper than motivation. It requires discipline, commitment, and a willingness to embrace discomfort. Motivation is like a match. It burns brightly but quickly. Discipline is the wood that keeps the fire alive long after the match has gone out. When motivation fades, we are left with choices. Do we stop until inspiration strikes again, or do we keep going regardless of how we feel? Those who choose the latter are the ones who achieve long-term growth. The truth is, consistency in the absence of motivation is what separates the dreamers from the doers. Anyone can start, few can endure. This is why so many people underestimate the difficulty of long-term effort. They assume that motivation will always be there to carry them. They wait for inspiration to strike before they take action. But inspiration is unreliable and motivation is inconsistent. If we depend solely on those feelings, our progress will always be unstable. The most successful individuals are those who have learned not to rely on how they feel in the moment. They act out of commitment, not convenience. They act because they've chosen to, not because they happen to feel inspired. The middle of any journey is often the hardest place to be. In the beginning, the excitement carries you. At the end, the results reward you. But in the middle, there is little to celebrate. The results are not yet visible, the excitement has faded, and the work feels endless. This is where most people give up, and it is precisely where persistence matters most. The middle is the proving ground where discipline is forged. Those who survive the middle eventually enjoy the rewards of the end. Think of writing a book. Starting is easy. You have an idea, you write a few pages, and it feels good. But when you're on page 50 or 100, and the story feels messy, the words don't come easily, and no one is cheering you on, it becomes tempting to stop. But the author who keeps writing, even when it feels like a grind, is the one who completes the manuscript. The moment of finishing is celebrated publicly, but the long, unseen grind in the middle is where the book was truly written. The same is true for building a business. At the start, the vision is clear, the energy is high, and the possibilities seem endless. But months into the journey, when money is tight, customers are scarce, and doubts creep in, the motivation that was once so abundant begins to disappear. Many give up at this stage, not because the dream wasn't worth it, but because the discipline to keep going when it no longer felt exciting wasn't there. Those who endure this season discover that breakthroughs are often found just beyond the point where most people quit. The fading of motivation is not a signal to stop, it is a signal to grow. It is the invitation to shift from relying on emotion to relying on commitment. It is the chance to build resilience, to develop patience, and to prove to ourselves that we are capable of more than fleeting bursts of energy. Every day we choose to act without motivation, we strengthen our character and solidify our habits. These small, unglamorous moments accumulate into something remarkable over time. What makes the continuation so difficult is that there is rarely immediate reward. The early gym sessions don't transform the body overnight. The first months of learning a language don't make you fluent. The early investments in a business rarely produce instant returns. The lack of visible progress can feel discouraging, but what is happening beneath the surface is growth. Just like a seed buried in the ground shows nothing for weeks before sprouting, our efforts often remain invisible until they reach a tipping point. If we stop too soon, we rob ourselves of the harvest. So while starting matters, it is the sustaining that defines us. The glow of motivation is temporary, but the strength built in its absence lasts. The ones who succeed are not the ones who started with the loudest enthusiasm, but the ones who continued when the applause was gone. They understood that beginnings are easy, endings are rewarding, but it is in the long, quiet middle when motivation fades that true greatness is born. Consistency is not about perfection, but about persistence and reliability. And this is where many people misunderstand the true essence of building lasting habits. Too often, people think that to succeed, they must do everything flawlessly, without ever missing a step, making a mistake, or falling short. They hold themselves to a standard of perfection, and the moment they stumble, they assume the habit is broken, the effort wasted, and the journey over. But the truth is that perfection is unrealistic and unsustainable, while persistence is what truly creates growth. Success does not belong to those who never fail, but to those who keep showing up after failure. Reliability is not the absence of mistakes, it is the presence of consistency in spite of them. Think of learning to play a musical instrument. A beginner will hit the wrong notes countless times. If the standard was perfection, very few would ever continue. The wrong notes are not proof of inability, they are proof of learning. The musician who persists, practicing every day despite the errors, eventually plays beautifully. It is not because they never failed, but because they persisted long enough for the failures to shape their growth. In the same way, in any habit we pursue, persistence is the bridge that takes us from incompetence to mastery. Reliability is equally important because it builds trust. When you become someone who consistently shows up, even imperfectly, others begin to count on you. But more importantly, you begin to count on yourself. Every time you show up, even when it is inconvenient, you send a message to yourself: I am reliable, I keep promises, I can be trusted. This internal trust is foundational to confidence. Without it, self-doubt grows and progress feels fragile. With it, setbacks lose their power because you know you will keep moving forward. Perfection, on the other hand, is a trap that creates paralysis. It convinces us that if we cannot do something perfectly, we should not do it at all. This thinking leads to inconsistency because no one can meet the impossible demand of flawlessness. A person might decide to run every morning and then miss one day due to illness or a busy schedule. If their mindset is perfection, they will feel like the streak is broken and that they have failed entirely. But if their mindset is persistence, they will see the missed day as part of the process and return the next morning. The habit remains intact not because it was never interrupted, but because it was never abandoned. There is also a deep freedom in letting go of perfection. When we release the pressure to be flawless, we create space to experiment, learn, and grow. Persistence allows us to make progress without being weighed down by unrealistic expectations. This is why many high achievers emphasize consistency over intensity. They understand that showing up imperfectly every day will take them farther than showing up perfectly only once in a while. Writing one imperfect page a day eventually produces a book. Waiting for the perfect conditions to write will likely produce nothing at all. Reliability is not glamorous. It does not always get celebrated or recognized because it is steady, quiet, and ordinary. Yet over time, it becomes extraordinary because it accumulates. Imagine a friend who shows up every time you call, who keeps their word, and who stands by you consistently. Over the years, that reliability becomes priceless. In the same way, when you show up for your goals consistently, even without perfection, you build a track record of dependability with yourself and with the world. This is far more powerful than chasing after the illusion of perfection. Persistence is also deeply connected to resilience. Life will always throw obstacles in the path, unexpected challenges, failures, and moments of doubt. If your foundation is perfection, those obstacles will shatter your progress. But if your foundation is persistence, those obstacles become part of the journey. Every setback becomes a lesson, every mistake a stepping stone, and every challenge an opportunity to practice resilience. You keep going not because it is easy, but because you have chosen to persist. We must also recognize that consistency thrives on persistence precisely because progress is not linear. There are days when effort feels rewarding and results are visible, and there are days when it feels like nothing is moving forward. On those flat or discouraging days, perfection would demand visible progress to validate the effort. Persistence, however, trusts the process, understanding that the results will come if the effort continues. A farmer does not dig up the seed every day to check if it is growing. They water it consistently, trusting that persistence will eventually lead to harvest. It is this mindset, choosing persistence over perfection and reliability over intensity, that allows ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things. History is filled with individuals who were not the most talented, not the smartest, not the most gifted, but who were the most persistent. They did not quit when others quit. They kept going when the initial excitement faded. When mistakes multiplied, when failure seemed overwhelming. Over time, persistence turned into mastery and reliability turned into reputation. In the end, consistency does not ask us to be perfect. It asks us to keep going. It asks us to show up again and again, whether we feel ready or not, whether the day is easy or difficult, whether yesterday was a success or a failure. The real power of consistency is not in doing things flawlessly, but in doing them persistently and reliably. And it is this persistence, this steady, reliable effort that transforms lives, builds trust, and creates results that perfection alone could never achieve. Repeated actions build identity and trust, first with ourselves, then with others. This truth lies at the heart of why consistency matters more than any single moment of effort. Every action we repeat shapes not only the results we see, but also the story we tell ourselves about who we are. When we show up consistently, even in small ways, we begin to internalize a new identity. We stop seeing ourselves merely as people trying to achieve something and start seeing ourselves as people who embody that very thing. A person who runs regularly is no longer just someone who tries to run, they become a runner. A person who writes daily is no longer someone who dabbles in writing, they are a writer. This shift from doing to being is one of the most powerful transformations consistency creates. The human brain seeks patterns. Every repeated action reinforces a pattern, and patterns form identity. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you will do something and then follow through, your mind begins to register that you are reliable. Over time, this becomes an internal truth. You believe in your own dependability. On the other hand, when you consistently fail to act on your intentions, you send yourself a different message that your words and promises hold little weight. Slowly, trust in yourself erodes. This is why consistency is not only about external progress, but also about internal credibility. Each repeated action is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Self-trust is the foundation of growth. Without it, every new habit or goal feels shaky, as though it could collapse at any moment. But when you consistently follow through on even the smallest commitments, waking up at a certain time, completing a daily task, practicing a habit, you build a reservoir of trust with yourself. This self-trust becomes an anchor in moments of difficulty, reminding you that you can depend on your own persistence even when circumstances are uncertain. In this way, repeated actions shape not only behavior, but also identity and confidence. What makes this process even more significant is that once self-trust is established, it naturally extends outward. Others begin to notice patterns in us as well. People watch not what we say, but what we do. Words may inspire for a moment, but actions create lasting impressions. When others see that we consistently show up, meet commitments, and follow through, they begin to trust us. This trust opens to opportunities, relationships, and responsibilities that would otherwise remain out of reach. Leaders are trusted not because they are perfect, but because they consistently show reliability. Friends and partners are valued not because they never fail, but because they consistently show care and presence. Trust, both internal and external, is born from repetition. Consider the professional environment. A colleague who occasionally delivers excellent work but often misses deadlines may be admired for talent but not trusted for reliability. In contrast, someone who consistently delivers, even without brilliance in every instance, becomes indispensable. The difference lies not in talent, but in repeated actions that build credibility. Over time, that credibility becomes more valuable than flashes of brilliance because people prefer to rely on those who are steady over those who are sporadic. This is how identity and trust combine to create influence. The same principle applies in personal life. A parent who consistently spends time with their child, even in small, ordinary ways, creates a bond of trust far deeper than occasional grand gestures. A partner who shows daily consideration builds a stronger foundation than one who expresses affection only in rare moments of intensity. Trust grows in the soil of repetition in the ordinary actions carried out consistently until they become part of identity. It is important to recognize that these repeated actions do not have to be large to be effective. Small, consistent actions often have the greatest impact. Writing a short journal entry every day can reshape self-awareness. Offering consistent encouragement to others builds a reputation of kindness. Taking time each morning to reflect can transform how you respond to challenges. Over time, these actions stop feeling like tasks and start becoming expressions of who you are. You no longer have to remind yourself to act this way because the actions have become embedded in your identity. There is also a reinforcing cycle at play. The more consistently we act in alignment with who we want to be, the more we believe in that identity. The stronger the identity becomes, the more naturally we repeat the actions. For instance, if you see yourself as a disciplined person because you consistently wake up early, you are more likely to make other disciplined choices throughout the day. Identity fuels actions, and actions reinforce identity. This cycle strengthens both self-trust and the trust others place in us. What makes repeated actions so transformative is their ability to change not just what we do, but who we are perceived to be. A person who shows up at work every day with integrity, who consistently keeps their word, becomes known as dependable. Over time, that reputation opens opportunities because people naturally place confidence in those who can be trusted. A person who consistently dedicates time to their craft, even without immediate results, becomes known both to themselves and others as someone committed to mastery. This reputation, grounded in consistency, often becomes more powerful than any individual accomplishment. So when we think about consistency, it is easy to focus only on results, better fitness, more knowledge, improved skills. But the deeper gift of consistency lies in how it reshapes identity and builds trust. Repeated actions send signals to ourselves and to others, creating patterns that define who we are. Over time, We become the kind of people who not only achieve, but also inspire confidence and reliability. And it all begins with the simple, repeated choice to act day after day until those actions become not just things we do, but reflections of who we are. The compound effect of consistent effort turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. This principle often goes unnoticed because human beings are naturally drawn to visible, dramatic change. We are fascinated by stories of sudden breakthroughs, overnight success, or instant transformation, yet behind nearly every story of greatness lies a quiet process of steady, repetitive effort, compounded over time until the results become remarkable. What seems ordinary in the moment, those small actions repeated daily, eventually produces outcomes that appear extraordinary to everyone else. The reason consistency has this compounding power is that each action builds upon the last. Much like interest in a bank account, effort grows not in isolation, but in accumulation. If you invest a small amount of money once, the effect is negligible. But if you invest consistently, month after month, the returns multiply, not simply add. The same principle applies to effort. Reading a few pages today may not change you. Writing a short paragraph may seem trivial. Practicing for 15 minutes may feel insignificant. But as days turn into months and months into years, these small acts compound. Before you know it, the knowledge from hundreds of books, the words of an entire novel, or the mastery of a skill has emerged, all from efforts that once felt ordinary. The beauty of the compound effect is that it works quietly, often invisibly. For a long time, it may seem as though nothing is happening. A person may go to the gym daily and see no change in the mirror for weeks. A student may study consistently and feel no smarter day to day. An entrepreneur may work tirelessly and see no profits at first. But beneath the surface, something powerful is taking place. Just as water boils, not at 99 degrees, but at 100, progress often remains hidden until it suddenly reaches a tipping point. The breakthrough moment always looks extraordinary, but it is simply the visible result of compounded effort finally reaching its threshold. The extraordinary outcomes we admire are, therefore, never built in a single moment. They are the result of ordinary actions done consistently that gather force over time. Consider the bamboo plant. For years after planting, there is little visible growth. To the outside observer, it looks as though nothing is happening. But beneath the soil, roots are spreading and strengthening, preparing to support rapid growth. Then, almost suddenly, the bamboo shoots up, sometimes growing several feet in a matter of weeks. To someone watching, the growth appears miraculous. But those who understand know that the years of invisible compounding effort are what made that sudden growth possible. Consistency is what fuels this compounding process because it ensures that effort is applied long enough for results to build. Sporadic effort, no matter how intense, lacks the staying power to compound. If you go to the gym for 6 hours one day and never return, there will be no transformation. If you write furiously for 1 week and then stop for months, the book will remain unfinished. Extraordinary results require continuity, not intensity. It is not the occasional act of greatness, but the steady stream of ordinary effort that creates lasting impact. This principle is not confined to personal growth, but applies to relationships, careers, and even character. A relationship is not strengthened by a single grand gesture, but by daily acts of kindness, listening, and attention that compound into deep trust and love. A career is not built on one great presentation, but on years of reliable contribution, learning, and growth. Even character itself is compounded. Every choice we make, every action we repeat adds up to the person we eventually become. Over time, those small choices define us far more than any single decision. What makes the compound effect so powerful is that it magnifies both positive and negative actions. Just as consistent positive actions lead to extraordinary growth, consistent neglect or harmful habits lead to extraordinary decline. Skipping one workout or eating one unhealthy meal makes no difference, but repeating those small choices over years compounds into poor health. Being dishonest once may not ruin trust, but repeated dishonesty compounds into broken relationships. The principle works regardless of whether the actions are beneficial or harmful, which is why awareness and intentionality are so crucial. The extraordinary always begins with the ordinary, and this should give us hope. Too often, people feel paralyzed by the magnitude of their goals. Writing a book, starting a business, learning a new language, or transforming health can feel overwhelming when viewed as a single massive task. But when we break it down into ordinary daily actions, one page, one small step, one habit, we realize that extraordinary achievements are simply the sum of ordinary efforts repeated over time. The compound effect assures us that what feels small today can become monumental tomorrow if we remain consistent. History offers endless examples of this principle at work. Thomas Edison conducted thousands of experiments before inventing the light bulb. Each attempt may have looked ordinary, even like failure, but together they compounded into one of the most extraordinary inventions in history. Athletes who reach the peak of performance are not defined by one heroic training session, but by years of consistent practice. Artists who leave behind masterpieces are not remembered for a single burst of inspiration, but for countless hours of daily work that compounded into timeless creations. The compound effect also shifts how we view success. Instead of searching for shortcuts or waiting for a breakthrough moment, we begin to value the process itself. We learn to trust that if we do the work consistently, the results will come, not in a dramatic instant, but in a steady, compounding growth that eventually astonishes even ourselves. This mindset keeps us grounded when progress feels slow, reminding us that the extraordinary is already in motion, even when it cannot yet be seen. The ordinary is not to be underestimated because ordinary actions are the seeds of extraordinary results. A single day's effort may not look impressive, but consistency turns it into momentum, and momentum compounds into transformation. This is the quiet power of consistency. It works behind the scenes, invisible at first, unstoppable over time, until the ordinary actions of today become the extraordinary outcomes of tomorrow. At the heart of it all, consistency is the force that transforms potential into progress, dreams into reality, and ordinary efforts into extraordinary results. It is not perfection that changes us, nor bursts of inspiration, but the simple act of showing up again and again, even when it feels dull, difficult, or unnoticed. Consistency teaches us persistence. When motivation fades, it shapes our identity through repeated actions. It builds trust with ourselves and with others, and it unleashes the compounding effect that turns small steps into great achievements. The message is simple but profound. Success is never about what we do once. It is about what we do repeatedly. Greatness does not arrive in a single moment. It is built quietly, steadily, and relentlessly through consistent effort. So if you want to change your life, do not chase perfection, do not wait for motivation, and do not underestimate the small actions you take each day. Choose to be consistent because consistency is the king of all habits. And when you master it, everything else begins to fall into place.